Good IQ on its own is not enough, and a lot of companies just go heavy on IQ. You need EQ to take others on the journey with you.
I think most people know what IQ and Q is, but not FQ. Tell us about this redefining formula that you are aspiring for people to understand.
How many strategic initiatives are there? And they'll say 100 or 150. I say, okay, say that back to yourself. You cannot have 150 things that are strategically important.
If you're about to give advice to the senior leader, what should he or she be doing to be able to engage the junior?
The golden rule you might have been taught as a child, which is treat others how you like to be treated. Right? Great rule, but there's a better rule.
It's my first time to hear about it. It's great to learn something new every day, all the time.
There's one metric that I measure every week. I measure it for me and the team. How much fun we had that week.
Welcome to Meaningful, Marketing, Mentoring, Mattering, with me, Joseph Alcantara. Together, we'll uncover the power of purpose, experience mentorship magic, unpack ways to make a difference, and find transformative journeys as a community. Welcome to another episode of Meaningful, Marketing, Mentoring, Mattering, with me, Joseph Alcantara. And today, we are very fortunate to have with us Mr. Faris Aranki. He is the CEO of Shiageto Consulting, an innovative consulting firm blending strategy and emotional intelligence. Having spent over 20 years delivering strategic change for various businesses around the world, Faris has experienced firsthand the fine differences between success and failure. He came to realize that often what hinders institutions from achieving their goals isn't the quality of their ideas. It's their ability to effectively engage with others at all levels and remove barriers in their way, which is where he is actually an expert in. To build on his passion for this, Faris set up his consulting firm in 2019 to help businesses and individuals improve their strategic effectiveness. On top of leading his firm, Faris is also now an accomplished speaker, writer, and contributor for a variety of outlets. Please welcome to the podcast, Faris Aranki. Hi, Faris.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you. Lovely to be here with you and the listeners, the viewers, and I'm super excited for the chat we're about to have.
All right, so let's start from the very beginning. I want to know the story of Faris. So I would always ask my guests the same question, and that is, what is your meaningful life story? Talk us through the summary of your personal and professional background from childhood to where you are now.
You want me to go all the way back, right to the... So, in West Philadelphia, born and raised. No, I'm here in London, and this is where I was born and grew up. So I'm a Londoner through and through, but of Middle Eastern roots. So my parents are both Palestinian, actually, and they sort of came to the UK many years ago. And grew up in the UK. Great time. Can dwell upon my childhood. I wouldn't say it was remarkable in any way, but learned to assimilate. That's a key point. Right? Both as a child of immigrants, but also as a slightly introverted, chubby kid. The best way was, how do you get on with people? Learn to sort of flex and integrate yourself into groups, right? Which would serve very useful later on in life. Why do I say that? Because I went to university. I studied maths and economics, and my first job, Joseph, was as a maths and economics high school teacher. I used to teach around the world. In fact, I taught in Latin America, I taught in the Middle East, I taught in South Asia, I taught it back in the UK. I had a great time and learned a great set of skills. If you're a teacher, you walk away with great communication, presentation, facilitation skills. But from there, I moved into the business world and joined an energy company. I learned all about the energy systems and the, oil and gas, power, electricity, water, those sort of things. And but I got really fascinated by strategy. So I ended up working on the strategy side of energy. And from there, I got approached and headhunted into strategy consulting, where I spent the next 12 years of my life working for a variety of different firms. Absolutely loved it, loved solving complex problems. But 4 years ago, I decided the time was right to set up Shiageto and look at strategy from a different point of view. And what a 4 years it's been. Absolutely amazing, absolute roller coaster, Joseph. I'm sure I'll share some stories from that. And that's what I find myself today, leading the firm. We've got a great team here. We've got loads of great clients. But most importantly, we're just doing some great stuff, and I enjoy it day to day.
Wow. What a beautiful life story, Faris. I have a lot of follow-up questions across all those aspects. The
Good.
commonality I think that we have right now is that I ended up doing marketing, but I
Okay.
also finished a degree in applied economics, but I've never
Wow.
practiced it. But
Okay.
anyway, it's quite interesting that you said that you taught maths and economics, and eventually led you to strategy and stumbled upon consulting after having learned a lot of the things that you now know on oil and gas. Another commonality, I think, is being able to travel the world and experience different cultures and apply all those learnings that you've gathered from there. Like for me, for example, I've also lived in Dubai for 9.5 years, and when you've mentioned that you're Palestinian, originally,
Yeah.
I have a lot of Palestinian friends as well when I lived there
Wow.
for 9.5 years. So quite interesting. A lot of things to delve into. So, second question now is I want to know more about your childhood as well, and
Okay.
navigating through the journey from childhood to figuring out what you'd want to do, because a lot of my viewers and listeners are first jobbers or those who are figuring out what they would want to do in life.
Yeah.
Before you're able to figure out that you want to teach, or you want to go into consulting, or you want to go into whatever it is that you have been doing right now, what
Yeah.
are those key moments that were defining moments for you to be able to figure out what you really want to do in your life?
Yeah. Well, I think, hey, when you're a child, when you're young, first of all, you don't know what you don't know. And I always admire those people who have, since a kid, I always want to be a doctor, and then they're always a doctor, you know. But I think for most of us, we don't necessarily have a calling determined so young, but we may be influenced by those above us. There's no coincidence that, children of doctors become doctors, children of lawyers become lawyers, or someone inspirational in their life. But so for me, obviously, I looked up to my parents, and my dad did work in finance at the time, and ran his own business actually, which we planted a seed, I think, which led me to ultimately run my own business. But a lot of the defining moments when I was a kid that led to me on career choices was trying new stuff. I think of the summer jobs that I had, be it helping at, be a cashier at a plant sale, be it working in a kitchen, cleaning dishes, to, working in a bar, serving drinks, to selling car insurance on the phone, right? So I just tried my hand, and most of these, it's not because I wanted to do them. They were just what was available to earn money over a summer, to go and do the things that I wanted to do. But these are actually, in hindsight, shaping, and they inform not only your skill set, but you go, did I enjoy that? Did I not? What did I enjoy about that? And that kind of prods you in the direction. And I kept that kind of test and learn. I guess there's a common theme in my life to variety. I love to learn new things. I love to try new things because I don't know what I don't know. So I kept that approach even when teaching was just a test and learn. If I look back in hindsight, I never had a passion to be a teacher. I actually wanted to go traveling, and I just looked at my skill set and said, what profession can I do that will pay for me to go traveling rather than just backpacking? So I managed to get a first job in a school teaching, and then once you've got one experience and a recommendation, then you can just spin it, right? But even after that, I kept testing. So even after I left teaching, I tried my hand at journalism. I worked a bit for the police, all before I settled into moving into the energy world.
Wow, that's a lot, Faris. It's like, expanded it even more to what you kind of defined yourself and your moment during those early years. And it's
Yeah.
also a very humbling, experience, I suppose, with all those jobs that you initially have taken in. And then I think the thing that really struck me the most is when you've mentioned test and learn. Because for those people who are listening here, when you do test, for example, it's either you succeed or you fail.
Yeah.
And most people today are, especially the younger folks, would be thinking that, okay, if I test this, I would either fail or I will become successful. And that will be my path forward, right? So for all those moments that you've failed or you've taken it as, a teachable moment or a learning opportunity, how did you navigate the highs and lows in your career journey as you were
Yeah.
going through them?
Hey, lots of highs and lows, right? Yeah. If I look back at the younger version of me, I was just like probably many of your listeners who are at that age, raring to go, disappointed when things didn't work out. So although I adopted test and learn, doesn't mean I didn't feel the emotions at the time, was devastated when something didn't work out or the reverse, like when, but it's in it with the benefit of a bit of time. It's making yourself reflect, and look at it. It's something I do with my clients all the time, right? Decision making is great, but there is you should just put just as much emphasis on the debrief. Why did we make those decisions? What did we learn when those decisions played out? What are we going to do differently in the future? But a lot of people forget that part of the process. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to process when things don't go well. We're all human. And I often talk about the change curve. Right? You are going to fail a lot in life. And every time you have something that doesn't go the way you want it, be it you didn't do as well in a test as you expected, somebody breaks up with you in a relationship, you lose somebody close to you, you go through what's called the Kubler-Ross curve, the change curve, where you go through 7 different emotions, from denial to anger to bargaining to self-pity. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your football team's lost. You'll go through it, but it'll just take like 5 minutes if your football team. Whereas if you lose someone dear to you, that might take 5 months, 5 years. But the thing is, the more you go through that change curve, the better you'll get at going through it. Right. So my approach to life is expose myself to more things that I might not be successful at to get myself through that change curve. Do silly little things so that when the big things come, I'll be a lot better at it.
That is a beautiful piece of advice. Definitely experience without reflection or processing, especially if it was a teachable moment, will not be a growth opportunity. And then to your point, being able to get into that curve is a realization that everyone should really hone in and focus on to move forward. That's really great advice, which I think is very much related to what you are, standing for in the philosophy of your consultancy firm, which is IQ, EQ, and FQ. I'll be honest. It was my first time when I was reading through your profile, and I honestly have listened to one of your podcast guestings about FQ. I was like, I suddenly got so intrigued by FQ because I think most people know what IQ and EQ is, but
Yeah.
not FQ. So now, tell us about this redefining formula that you
Yeah.
are aspiring for people to understand.
Yeah.
Tell us all about it.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you, Joseph. Yeah. So I've always been a firm believer. I tried to look back on my own life and the companies I worked with, and I've worked with hundreds of companies as a strategy consultant. What was the winning formula? Is when did things work, and as opposed to when they didn't? And as you said, if you are, and it all starts with knowing what you want to achieve. I want to personally, I want to be a better person. I want to lose weight. I want to learn this language. Or companies, we want to break into this market. We want to sell this product. Okay, work that out. But to get there, how are you going to get there? Right? You need IQ. You need the ideas. What's our plan? Right? What is the steps we're going to take together? Great. Come up with the best plan. Right? And the best plans are not the first ones you pick. Right? They're the ones you come up with all the options, pick the best option, stress test it, then you've got a great plan. So that's the IQ part. That's not enough though. Because if you have a great plan, but nobody else gives a damn or believes in it, it's just a piece of paper. All right. So good IQ on its own is not enough, but a lot of companies just go heavy on IQ. You need EQ to take others on the journey with you. that emotional intelligence to say, hey, look, this person doesn't get it. I need to change how I talk to them about it. This person is not on the bus. I need to spend more time with them. That's what EQ is about, right? Getting others on the journey with you, right? But that's still not enough, because you can have great ideas, you can have everyone bought in, but if you're not focused, that's FQ, focus quotient, you're not going to be successful, right? I'm sure in your life, and I know in my life, sometimes I take on too many things at the same time. That means I am setting myself up to be unsuccessful in all of them. I'm not focused enough. So to be honest with yourself, you need to make sure you have the right amount of focus. And that's not like just, I'm not looking at my phone. It's actually sometimes I got to say no to this to create the space to do this. Or I know there's these barriers on the way. Why don't I remove them before I start the journey to make it easier? And that's what FQ is all about. Set yourself up for success by having the right focus. So yeah, IQ times EQ times FQ. No pluses, because you need all three.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that. So thanks for that, because my next question is, now I get it. I know what FQ means.
Yeah.
But is it going to be of equal weight, IQ, EQ, FQ? And what's the hardest one to achieve? Or is there a perfect balance?
There's a perfect balance. I tell you what, there's always an imbalance. I always say it's like a wonky tripod when I go into companies or when I work with individuals. You can spot straight away which one is wonky. And sometimes it's two are wonky, right? They've got a very big spike in one of these three. So, I always say, let's fix that one quickly, right? To give you a bit more stability. So, yeah, if I look back at all the work that we do with firms, it is typically more an EQ and FQ that we work with. I'd say there's a lot of great companies out there with great ideas. They don't need our help with that. But they do need help with the EQ, getting others excited, particularly big companies, because there's hierarchies, there's silos, they lose touch with their employees, their customers, or very technical firms, because they're strong IQ. Engineers love, talking in jargon, thinking everyone understands what they understand. Yeah. Same with lawyers, same with bankers. So often there's just very high IQ, so we'll come in and support them. But equally, I know lots of organizations with loads of EQ, right? And they're not really focused. They're just, everyone's best friend. They don't say no to any project or any opportunity. And that just means chaos, no FQ at all. So often we go in and go, wow, you're super friendly. Let's put some discipline in.
Yeah, I fully agree. That's what I notice right now, especially here in America, when it comes to the two types of organizations. One can either be, a startup and medium size, wherein everyone's like very much fueled when it comes to that entrepreneurial mindset where everyone's ideas are welcome. And then because of the size of the company and its employee are relatively small, everyone's like all hands on deck all the time and everyone is engaged. Everyone has a clear vision or goal that they will do anything and everything to achieve that. But to your point, the second part to it is that if suddenly the company is so huge and became like public, for example, there are like a lot of, departments, hierarchies, and then ultimately at the end of the day, you need to hit that revenue and profitability. It's all about the numbers. So it's all about, lower costs and high revenue, which I know is kind of sad sometimes because the EQ part is kind of sacrificed. But the different dimension of FQ to me is something that's a breath of fresh air, because for me, it feels like it becomes the balancing act that will also serve as a compass in terms of understanding how much we can take on, what we would need to focus on, and making sure that we're not biting more than we can chew. And then looking at Pareto principle as well, we're in, let's focus on the 80% that will drive most of the impact, which I think is the most important thing for different businesses. Having had that reflection personally, what would be the biggest challenges of organizations from what you've observed so far when it comes to embracing the principle of FQ? And how do we find ways to be able to address that at the onset?
Yeah, so great question, Joseph. And I'm going to take it at two levels. One is the company level, right? and then you can talk about the individual. Each of these apply, the IQ, EQ, FQ apply at a company level and individual level. So at a company level, by far and away, the biggest FQ barrier, as I call it, is a lack of prioritization. Is doing too many things as a company, right? And it amazes me, but no longer amazes me. But the common theme I find, I walk into a company and I say, how many strategic initiatives are you doing? And they'll say 100 or 150. I say, okay, say that back to yourself. You cannot have 150 things that are strategically important. Right? That's an oxymoron. Right? You need to scale back. Now, 9 times out of 10, they will know that. They will academically know we shouldn't be doing this much. Right? But the emotional side of giving up things is really hard. Right? Because they're like, oh, but because each of those individual projects makes sense. And some of them are like personal projects. The CEO approved this one. The CFO said this one. So they're like, yeah, I get it, but I'm just not willing to give up on that project. So often the greatest help we can be to those companies is to find a way for them to let go of projects that are not as good as the other projects. Right? So that is a big way that we help. And I love it. And I do the same technique. Well, not the same. I use a technique regularly, which is I will turn their projects into a deck of Pokemon cards.
Oh, that's interesting.
And we will then play Pokemon in the boardroom for an hour or two. Right? The whole point being, the Pokemon cards I create is using their own data. Yeah? Mm-hmm. How much does this project cost? How many employees is it going to involve? How much revenue is it going to bring, or profit, or margin, right? And we play the game in the boardroom, and certain cards keep losing. And the people who own those cards will say, this is not fair. My cards are terrible. I'm like, it's your project, my friend. Get rid of the project, right? And they're like, okay, yeah, it's a shitty card. Let's get rid of it, right? You do that 2 hours, you can get from 150 to 30 projects, because what it's doing is reframing the same academic thing they know in an environment, and they're having fun and they're seeing it. And I do this time and time again. Reframes, take them through the emotional side so that they let go. And what a difference for that group of individuals, but the company, to be able to say the next day, do you know what? We're now focusing on these 30 things, right? Yeah, there'll be some people in that company who struggle because their entire work stream was one of the other 120 things. But in general, for the company, that's so much clearer. Oh, yeah, we're doing this. We're focusing on this product. We're focusing on this project. Wow, we can, instead of me being spread across 6 things, I now know what I really need to do.
I love the whole idea of gamification to make it easier to understand on your process, but also at the same time, reframing and reprioritizing. I know sometimes, especially whenever you're in a workshop, it's easier said than done when it comes to bringing that to the real life again that they will be operating in. So 2 questions there. One, what would be the hardest challenge that you experience as a consultant when it comes to giving those recommendations that they would have to, they've undergone the process, they've identified, the things that they would need to deprioritize, for example.
Yeah.
Also at the same time, to put that into practice the following day that where they're going to go back to reality. And second question there is that how do you make sure that you follow through and bring them towards that journey of success that you've planted in their minds?
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges is lack of self-awareness amongst individuals and even senior leaders. They don't see how they're destructive to themselves and the behaviors and the habits that they exhibit. So often you have to show them that. I use a lot of data. I record sessions and I show back to them. And hand in hand, that goes with your second question of, how do you make sure that they don't make a decision on day 1 and day 2, they sort of switch, they change their mind, they renege on that sort of thing. And a lot of, the impact that I can make with companies is by understanding the individuals I'm working with. So one of the first things I'll do with any new team is meet each individual for 45 minutes, at least 45 minutes. And the objective of that for me is by the end of the 45 minutes, if I ask the right questions, I will understand their drivers, things that get them to do stuff, and also their resistors. Okay, things that they stop them from doing stuff. I call them whiffums and whammies. Whiffums are what's in it for me, and whammies are what's against my interest. Right? And if you can understand another human being's whiffums and whammies, you can lean into the drivers and just make sure you avoid the resistors. Now, it might be for you, Joseph, you have a big ego, so I'd play to that. Or you might be driven by competition, so I'd play to that. And you might hate sort of very detailed spreadsheets, so I'd make sure to avoid that. Never present. So, yeah, how do I make sure there's a commitment and it follows through? Is by understanding the individual and tailoring things to get the momentum and the buy-in.
That is very exciting and very methodical, I think, which is actually good. I'm sure that all the companies who have worked and will be working with you will definitely benefit a lot from it. Of course, we don't want to give away everything because that it's part of the business, it's part of the gig, but I think that really gives a great picture that EQ, IQ, and FQ working hand in hand and having someone to journey with them who knows how to navigate it fully, and that will be your expertise, will be something great to actually have. So now delving deeper into the more softer side of
Sure.
the conversation that I want to have today.
Yeah.
It's more like now seeing how you are meaningfully helping individuals and companies navigate through that journey of defining their goals and reaching their success. What would be the most fulfilling part of what you do in your consultancy and your role right now?
Yeah, sure. I love helping people have that aha moment, or teams have that aha moment. What is that aha moment? When I was a teacher, particularly around math, right? Think how many kids hate math. And I used to teach 11 to 18-year-olds. And particularly the younger kids would hate a lot of, many of them would say, I don't get it, I hate it. But unfortunately, in most education systems, it's compulsory. So they still had to be there. And if you could help that kid who told you they hated something finally get it, talk to them in a language that they got, you could see that eureka moment. You could see their excitement. They're like, I get it now, right? I enjoy it. And that for me, I get that same feeling when I work with teams and suddenly it clicks. They're all talking the same language. They all agree on something. And I like, whether they know it or not, this moment is going to be pivotal for how they work as a team and whether this strategy gets done. And I can spot it just being out there. And it gives me a warm rush. And that's what I do, right? And it doesn't have to be teams. Sometimes that's help an individual just think through their problem. And suddenly they're like, oh, that is what's troubling me. And I just like, that's what I needed. That's not what I needed. That for me is good enough.
I'm going to call you now, Faris, the facilitator of the aha moment, which is beautiful, I guess. That is great. Um, you know, in terms of reaching that aha moment for, whether your students or your clients, what's your mentoring style like? Because I know that, it's not, one size fits all, but how do you pivot? How do you adjust? And what's your style like when it comes to different needs and different personalities?
Yeah, well, it comes back to that understanding the individual. Give them what they need. I always talk about the platinum rule over the golden rule. So the platinum rule is, the golden rule you might have been taught as a child, Joseph, which is treat others how you like to be treated. Right? Great rule, but there's a better rule. Treat others how they want to be treated. All right? If you can find out how they like to be treated. So what does that mean in terms of my approach? If somebody needs a bit more of a stick, give them a stick. If that's what they like. Right? If they like a bit more direction and being told what to do that. But if they like to explore it themselves and work it out, create the space for them to do that. Now, on the balance of things, I'm not a professional coach. To be a professional coach, you have to have a couple of years of training, qualifications. Not to say that I couldn't do it, but my style is a bit more directive. And what I mean by that is I will tell people where they're wrong, or not where they could improve, and give them some tips on how to do it. And often that point of sharing with them where they could improve involves showing them the facts. So I often, when I work with individuals, I use a couple of techniques, particularly senior individuals. I talk about bruising their ego early in a safe environment. Right? A lot of senior people don't have people who tell them they're rubbish or that they're wrong. So I find a way early on in the engagement to show them that they're not very good at something. Right? And not to embarrass them, but find a way to show, and that usually opens them up to to being coached or looking at things. And it might open it up because they're annoyed at you, or it might open up because they're like, actually, I'm not very good at this and I could do with some help. But either way, they're suddenly listening to you.
Two things. One, the platinum rule. It's my first time to hear about it.
Okay.
It's great to learn something new every day, all the time. And, hearing how you've explained it, it's actually great because it's all about selflessness. Because we're so used to the golden rule we're in, it's just how you would want to be treated. But, the platinum rule, to your point, is making sure that you empathize and you're becoming more compassionate to the people that you're dealing with because you're customizing your approach based on what is right for them, based on what they're feeling, which is actually great. If everyone will just be applying the platinum rule every day of our lives, this world will definitely be
yeah. And if I may, I'll share a little story, which sometimes the platinum rule is you completely oblivious to the impact you're having on somebody else by following the golden rule. And when I many years ago I lived in Nepal with a local family, and I was living with them in their house. And now certainly in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in the US where you're based, you are taught growing up to say please and thank you. Yeah, it's just a nice thing to do, right? So you think this is a great thing to do, everyone will appreciate it. Do you know what? I found a country where they don't appreciate it, right? One day, 1 week into living with this family, we were sitting having dinner, and I asked the father of the family, please will you pass me the salt? And when he passed me the salt, I said, thank you. He suddenly erupted and shouted at me. He said, will you stop saying please and thank you? I was like, in my head, I'm like, what? Why? What? This is weird. Why? And I said, sorry, why? In my culture, he said, in my culture, you say please and thank you when somebody does something meaningful, like saves your life. When somebody passes the salt, they should just pass you the salt. What kind of shitty individual doesn't pass you the salt? By you saying please and thank you, it's implying to me that you don't think I am a nice enough person that I would just pass you the salt. So please stop it because you're insulting me every time you do it. I'm just like, whew, that's the platinum rule right there. But I never even thought about it. That simple thing that I grew up could annoy someone so much.
But that's a great example because it really shows that, our own definition, say, for example, in that anecdote, our definition of manners, the please and thank you, is not necessarily exactly the same in other cultures. So therefore, understanding what matters to others, being more open, being more educated, I think, and having that worldview when it comes to understanding what manners is all about is also very important, which I think is really great because, the world is smaller right now thanks to technology and social media. Education is so democratized. So it is up to us in terms of, how we can learn, including the different cultures and different ways of working and different understanding. So I think that's a great example. The other thing that you've mentioned earlier that is a great takeaway for me is when you've mentioned about bruising the ego, which I think is very important to also understand and uphold for leaders and for them to understand that, I read somewhere that, a bad day for ego is a good day for the soul because it really touches upon the importance of letting go of yourself and thinking of others. In the corporate setting, in an organizational setup, especially the traditional ones, the boss is the boss, and then the first jobber or the junior is a junior. In other cultures, even, the assistant or the associate don't have a say on anything. So as the world progressed and has the business world has evolved, what's your take on the transformation and development of business over the last couple of decades, and also how organizations play its role right now when it comes to leadership?
Well, I think it's followed the similar trend. I always think it's we like to think that we're in a unique time. And I'm sure people in the 18th century thought they were in a unique time, and those in the 19th century thought that. Now, I obviously I didn't live in those times, but leadership does evolve, but always one generation feels the other generation is out of touch. They don't work like we work. They don't have the same work ethic. They have different expectations. And for me, that's just a lack of communication, lack of EQ. You're not spending enough time understanding the next generation, investing the time to bring them, say, this is my point of view and this is what's your point of view? Okay, how can we work together? You see it in smaller organizations where there is more flatter hierarchy and there are better lines of communication. And so then all it takes is something like hybrid working to really accentuate it. And that really sort of highlights the difference in styles between generations, between senior and juniors. And so the individual challenge is unique over time, but it's a common thread for me of this lack of sufficient emotional intelligence and bridging the gap. And I tell leaders, it is predominantly your job, but also you need to create the space and encourage your teams to also step up, because otherwise it's always be this parent-child relationship when it should be adult to adult.
That's a good point. It's all about communication. It's like bridging that gap, right?
Yeah.
But if you're about to give advice to the senior leader, what should he or she be doing to be able to engage to the junior and vice versa? What should the junior be saying or communicating to the leader so that that gap will be bridged?
Well, I mean, first of all, create more opportunities for them to talk. Things I do with companies are as simple as introducing paid lunches, random coffee generators, go and work shadow, go and spend a day. Just every step you get, every connection where you can get to know someone a bit better or see their world through their eyes is priceless time, right? And I appreciate we're all very busy. So how many CEOs can go back to working on the shop floor? I'm not saying they need to do that 100% of the time, but occasionally. And I think just generally for both parties, ask more questions. However many questions you have in your head, double it, and then listen more. You will be amazed at the things that you heard. So less telling, more asking. Now, obviously, there are certain situations where you need to tell. If a building's on fire, you're not going to ask questions. Do you think we should leave? Do you think it's warm in here? No, you're just like, let's get out. But if it's not on fire, have default questions as your default setting.
That's great advice again. And hopefully more companies and more leaders and, juniors getting into that journey of professional success will be able to adapt that. Thanks for that really great advice. Now, again, on the lighter side of things, what's your, I know that you're very busy with all your clients. I can just imagine the world, with the world we're living in today, where it's always hybrid now. But what's your 9 to 5 like versus your 5 to 9 life? And how do you manage both?
Yeah, well, so I'm gonna have to caveat it, but I'm a founder and owner of a small business, so the two do merge a little bit occasionally, both out of choice, but also because it's. But the reason it's out of choice is I built a company out of the things that I enjoy doing. Actually, so they don't seem like a chore. Now, what do I mean by that is, before I ran a company, my default setting was to catch up with old friends as often as possible. Yeah. So outside of work, I'd be like every night I'd catch up with a different friend from the last 10 years. I'd go for coffees at weekends. Do you know what? That's now just how I run my business. So my 9 to 5, if I'm not delivering work, as in facilitating a group or running a training session, I'll just be catching up with as many people as I want. And it just so turns out those people become my clients in the future. That's how you end up working with, right? But secretly, I would be doing that anyway. I enjoy that. So I enjoy catching up variety, and that plays out into other things that I do at weekends and 5 to 9. Right? I love doing a variety of sports. I love making the most of different culture here in the UK, in London. So I don't have a specific thing. It's not like I just like theatre, so I'm only going to watch theatre. No, one week I'll go and watch theatre. The next week it'll be an art gallery. The next week it'll be go and see a game of soccer. The next week it'll be. So I'm all about the variety and the different hobbies and skills, and that brings me joy. But the one constant in my life is spending time with family and my close friends.
That is great. again, it's like a full circle moment when you've mentioned variety, because you've started with trying a lot of things when you were young, and then
Yeah,
now you're working professionally, and in your adult life, it's still the variety and being able to harmonize both the professional side of Ferris to the personal life of Ferris, which I think is, you know, I think most people are aspiring to have,
yeah,
in the side of the world wherein everything is so compartmentalized. But post pandemic, we're starting to learn that, being able to harmonize and integrate both in certain aspects where it's workable is
yeah,
really the name of the game right now, because it's just impossible to separate both. So,
yeah,
with that, knowing how productive you are and how you were able to create systems that
yeah.
will work for you, how do you now define success? And
Mm.
has it changed over the years?
For this stage of my life, it has changed over the years. When I was a younger person in a different role, I set myself successful targets of, I want to. I want to have this job. I want to earn this salary. Blah blah. And some of that is meaningless when you look back. No, not meaningless, but it gets you. For this stage of my life, linked to the fact that I set up a business to do more things that I want to do. There is one metric that I measure every week. I measure it for me and the team. All right,
What is
and
that?
it is this simple. We measure how much fun we had that week. Scale of 1 to 10. Right? And I just want to have more fun in life. So I always look to get an 8 or above, like a rolling average of an 8 or above. Right? Obviously, some weeks you have a terrible week. Things didn't work out. So you can have a 4 or a 5. Right? The odd week here and there, that doesn't matter. Right? If you're always having a 4 or 5, that's when I get worried about my life. But that is my goal. So that allows me to not be constrained. Now, obviously, I need to, I want the company. Well, it's nice that the company grows, but what I find is the more fun we have as a team, the more the revenues and the profits come in. And it's funny that, but so I don't fixate on the revenues and profits. That's a byproduct. But so success for me is certainly at this stage of my life, have more fun.
If we can have all the fun in the world and be successful and have our practical needs answered, again, ideal world. To those people who are hearing and listening to this saying that, oh, that's easier said than done, Ferris, because,
Yeah,
the measure of fun doesn't necessarily translate all the time when it comes to,
no,
hitting sales targets, all those other things that are also, the practical requirements of growing a business. How do you marry that? And how do you strike that balance of, have fun and things will eventually come in if your P&L is bleeding?
yeah,
What are your thoughts around that?
yeah. So fun is a luxury that only certain people are allowed to have, and I fully acknowledge that. Right. And I take you back to my first year of my company.
Mm.
Where I left a high paid position job and had a very big salary, big number.
Mhm.
And I said to myself, there's no way I can earn that number. And if he set that as a goal in year 1 or year 2, I'm just going to beat myself up every time I fail to achieve it. And that's not good for me. It's not good for the business. So I flipped it on its head. I said, let's work out what is the number I need to meet all my basic needs. Let's make sure those are covered. Things like my mortgage, my rent, my gas and electricity, my food, maybe a holiday, maybe my car payments. And let's make sure I create the time for, also do a list of how much time do I need for the basic minimums, the things in my life, spending time with my family, spending time in my community. Yeah. Achieve those first, and then you're allowed to have fun.
Mm.
And when I wrote down those numbers, they were a lot smaller than the numbers I used to earn. And it shocked me. I was like, but I used to think that was success. I was like, as long as I break through this barrier, I know I'm going to be okay. I've got all my needs met. And everything above that, I'm then allowed to have fun. So, yes, right? Cover your basics. That's rule number 1. Then allow yourself to have fun, because then it's meaningless because if the value doesn't come alongside the fun, you're still having fun and you've covered your basics.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that debunks that thought that, oh, how can you have fun if you don't have food to eat? But yes, I fully agree. Cover the basics and making sure that, you have that first requirement met
Yeah,
first before, progressing into something else. All right. Last couple of questions.
sure.
Going back to your younger self. If you're going to
Yeah.
talk to a 21-year-old Faris, what would you tell him today, knowing what you know today?
Oh, shave that beard. No. I mean, it's very similar advice that you hear a lot of people, right? Don't be in such a hurry to get somewhere, right? I think the younger me often was like, I must get this promotion. I must own an apartment by this age. In the long grand scale of things, it doesn't matter. It averages out, right? And the energy you spend sprinting at that point in your life, you could be doing other stuff and getting more value. So I tell myself to, but you can tell that to young people, and they're like, nope, I still want that promotion, right? Yeah. So, but I would somehow try and convince him to slow down a bit, take time to enjoy the stuff as it's happening, rather than being focused on some arbitrary deadline because others around him are sprinting as well.
Love that. Fully agree. Especially for this generation today, who unfortunately had that misfortune of being able to compare themselves because of social media. And then to your point, it becomes like a sprint as opposed to a marathon that is more meaningful. Last question, Faris. What
Sure.
does a meaningful life mean to you?
Well, a meaningful life is make the world a little bit better for just one other person, all right? And you've had a meaningful life. And make sure. I would say that I don't care about a legacy when I die. I just don't want people to go, yeah, he was a bit annoying, right? I don't want, I'm not looking for people to talk positively. I just would hope there aren't any people talking negatively about. That's a meaningful life.
That's beautiful. And with that, I'm giving you the floor, Faris. This is a beautiful conversation. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that the listeners as well, especially those who are in business, would be very much interested to get to know more about your firm, IQ, EQ, and FQ as well. So please feel free to share where they can reach out to you and how they can contact you, or anything else that you would want to promote in the channel.
Yeah, I absolutely would love to carry on the conversation with all the listeners. So there's two great places to do that, facilitate that. One is you can see that the company is called, or you may recall it's called Shiageto Consulting, and Shiageto is the Japanese word for a sharpening stone. So when you have a knife that goes dull, use a Shiageto. We just help people be a bit sharper. We are the Shiageto for that. So look up shiageto.com. In fact, here you go. Here's a pillow that my mum made with the company name on, Shiageto. I'm sure we'll put it in the show notes, the spelling. And the other place is look up me, Faris Aranki, on LinkedIn. I spend, unfortunately, probably a little too long on LinkedIn every day because I love it. But there's only one Faris Aranki. I post every day. I write a weekly blog that you can, but I also reply to every message. So drop me a line. We'll carry on the conversation. And I look forward to it.
And again, thank you so very much for being on the show today. And hopefully we'll be able to see each other here in the US when you visit the next time. Thank you so much.
Inshallah, I look forward to it. Thank you, Joseph.
Inshallah. Shukran.
Afwan.